Our movie begins with the police capturing Ken. We learn that Ken was already in custody and had requested permission from the prison warden to visit his sick mother. Indeed, they take him to the hospital to check on her. When he arrives, handcuffed, he meets the doctor and asks about his mother's condition, but she tells him she has passed away. He asks to see her, and after saying his goodbyes, the guards escort him back to prison. In the elevator, Ken manages to overpower the guards, and no one can stop him as he escapes. Ken keeps running until he reaches a bar, where two guards stand outside. He takes them down and heads in, meeting a girl named Baze, who works there. When he introduces himself, she tells him it's the first time she's seen him around. He asks her for a drink and takes a seat. At the nearby table, Verna and his men are talking about someone named Lincoln. We learn that Lincoln is Ken's brother, and one of Verna's men explains that they were distributing drugs with a friend named Rock. When Rock sensed someone watching them, he attacked, but the guy cut Rock's hand and escaped. Anna, Rock's partner, tried to catch the guy but failed. When she returned to Rock, she found him dead and his severed hand missing. Ken overhears and laughs at Tom's story, which angers Tom, who then demands to know who he is. Baze tells him she doesn't know, and Ken reveals that he's Lincoln's friend. They tell him to finish his drink and leave, but Ken keeps listening to their conversation. He tells Verna he was there and explains how Tom ran away and left the drugs when the man cut Rock's hand. Tom, now furious, calls the guards to throw Ken out, but Ken pulls out his gun and holds them off, asking them where Lincoln is. At that moment, Lincoln's assistant, Hal, enters and, upon seeing Ken, tells Verna and his men that he's Lincoln's brother. Hal then describes Ken as a failure who couldn't complete any tasks given to him. Ken loses his temper, shoots one of Verna's men in the leg, and orders everyone to put their phones on the ground. Hal asks Tom if he killed Rock and cut off his hand, but Tom denies it. Then Ken reveals a bag that belonged to Rock, admitting that he's the one who killed him. Ken asks Hal to call Lincoln and inform him of Rock's death, asking him to come to the bar right away. When Hal asks Ken about the scars on his face, Ken explains that Lincoln is to blame and recalls a time when he went to Lincoln, asking him for money to open a gym. Lincoln refused because he had bet on Ken in a boxing match, but Ken lost, and they lost their money as well. Ken asks for money again, and Lincoln agrees to give it to him in exchange for completing a mission. Lincoln sends him to Hal for details, and when Ken arrives, Hal tells him that a woman will come to the office soon to pick up a blue bag and instructs him to steal it from her after she leaves. Ken asks why they want to steal the bag, and Hal explains that his brother's company gives loans to people and, after they take the money and leave, sends people to rob them, returning the money to the company. This way, people are forced to repay. Ken follows through with the mission but is eventually caught and sent to prison. After he went to prison, Kane encountered the leader of a gang and got into a fight with him. Despite the leader's massive size, Kane managed to fight him off after a brutal struggle, though he was stabbed in the stomach by one of the leader's men. Despite the injury, Kane overcame the man and took the knife from him. At that moment, the entire gang attacked him. Due to this incident, his sentence was extended, and he was placed in solitary confinement. During this time, Kane took advantage of the isolation to train himself and build his strength, preparing to defend himself once he was released. When he finally got out of solitary, a gang member tried to attack him, but Kane struck him first. This led the other prisoners to join in, yet Kane was able to defeat them all, fighting them off one by one until no one dared to confront him. One day, Kane asked a fellow inmate why they were targeting him, and he replied that it was Kane's own brother, Link, who had sent them to kill him. Kane couldn't understand why his brother would betray him, but he was filled with bitterness. In another incident, while Kane was eating in the prison, a group of inmates ambushed him, intending to kill him. Kane fought them off, even throwing one of them across a table and breaking it. A man came from behind and restrained him to let the others beat him, but he managed to break free and fight them off. In the middle of the fight, someone threw acid on his face, leaving him severely burned. The guards quickly intervened to break up the fight and took Kane for medical treatment, but the warden decided to increase his punishment and placed him in solitary confinement again for a month. During his isolation, Kane continued his training, and when he was released, he was attacked by yet another group of inmates. He had no choice but to fight them, and he broke anyone who came near him. Even when he was stabbed in the stomach again, he showed no sign of weakness. His sentence was extended by another 6 months, and every time he was released from solitary, he ended up in fights that sent him back for even longer periods. One day, his mother came to visit him in prison. When he saw her, he asked about his brother Link, but she told him that Link hadn't been able to visit. She then revealed that she had been diagnosed with cancer, which added to his pain. He didn't want to tell her about Link's repeated attempts to have him killed in prison, as Link was the one supporting her financially. Kane wanted to avoid any conflicts that might further worsen her condition. He was afraid her health might deteriorate even more. After learning of his mother's death, Kane requested a visit to her, but instead, he decided to escape from prison. He killed the guards who were holding him and made his escape, determined to get revenge on everyone who had wronged him. The story flashes back to the day Kane overheard his brother Link's conversation with someone. They were planning to take money from a certain woman and decided to steal her blue bag. In the scene, we see Kane steal the bag and run, with the woman chasing after him until she's hit by a car and dies instantly. He couldn't handle the shock, so he just stood there, watching her body until the police arrived and arrested him. That was the first time he had ever killed. Later, he was taken to the police station, where he met Detective Hale, who began questioning him. During the interrogation, the detective told him that the woman he had killed had young children and that because of his actions, 2 kids had been orphaned. The detective also revealed that he knew it was his brother who had asked him to do it, and told him that his brother had killed many people, with this woman being one of them. The detective offered him a way out of prison if he confessed against his brother, but warned him that if he refused, he'd bear the full responsibility, go to prison, and might even face the death penalty. He assured him that his brother wouldn't help him if he got locked up. But Kane insisted that he wouldn't say a word unless his lawyer was present. Then, Detective Hale ordered his assistant to place Kane in a holding cell until the lawyer arrived. Once the assistant took him to the cell, he began beating Kane, trying to force him to confess against his brother until he lost consciousness. The story then moves to a bar, where Kane learns that his brother Lincoln has arrived with a large group of men. When Lincoln sees Kane, he becomes extremely angry. Kane holds his gun steady and warns that he will shoot anyone who moves. He then demands that everyone leaves their phones. Lincoln orders his men to put down their weapons and drop their phones on the floor. At this point, Kane has already struck one of Lincoln's men, and when Lincoln looks over, he realizes that the man is dead. Kane tells him that he was the one who killed him and admits that he also killed his friend, Rock, and even cut off his hand. Lincoln tries to calm his brother down, urging him to think rationally so he wouldn't hurt himself. Kane, however, responds by telling him that he went to prison because of him and reveals that he had been the target of multiple assassination attempts there. He then accuses his brother of trying to have him killed in prison. Kane shows Lincoln the injuries he sustained in prison and tells him that he refused to testify against him, which would have sent his brother to prison and freed himself. Yet, his brother didn't help him, didn't send him a lawyer, and even paid $50,000 to a gang in prison to have him killed. Later, Kane explains that Evans told him that Kane had testified against him in court, claiming he was responsible for all the crimes. This betrayal led Lincoln to try and kill him, but Kane insisted that Evans was lying. We learn that after being released, Kane went to Evans to find out why his brother had testified against him. He wanted his brother to kill him out of remorse. When Evans attempted to kill Kane with a hammer, Kane fought back, took the hammer from him, and struck him on the head until he was dead. Kane then told him that after he left prison, he killed the officer who tortured him. Lincoln asked him how he had become so accustomed to killing, to which Kane replied that prison had turned him into a monster. He also told him that their mother had died in the hospital and that he had found out from the nurses that no one had visited her, while Lincoln explained that his heavy workload had kept him from visiting her. Finally, Kane admitted to his brother that they were both responsible for many deaths, the first being the woman he had taken the bag from. He revealed that the people Lincoln killed owed him money, and Lincoln was killing them for that reason. The argument became heated, angering Kane enough that he ended up killing his brother. After his brother's death, Kane felt deeply disturbed, knowing he had killed his friend and his assistant. The others around tried to rush at Kane, but he warned them that he would kill anyone who moved, so everyone froze in fear. After he got out of prison, Ken went to the accountant who used to work with his brother and asked him to open his brother's account so he could find out how much money he had. He threatened him, saying he would kill him if he didn't do it. The accountant, fearing for his family, complied and opened the account, informing Ken that his brother had $2 million. Ken explained that the money had been transferred to 150 bank accounts, which belonged to families that Lincoln had killed. When Ken asked the investigator for permission to visit his mother, the investigator asked for information about his brother. Ken provided that information to get released from prison. Later on, Ken noticed a strange taste in his drink and asked Bees about it, realizing that she had poisoned him to get rid of him. He threw the cup on the floor and didn't finish his drink. After that, he told everyone present that he only wanted to be alone with his brother. The first person to try to leave was Tun, but Lincoln stopped him, assuring him not to worry since the gun only had 10 bullets, and it was impossible to kill them all. At that moment, Bees grabbed a bottle and hit Ken on the head, prompting everyone to attack him, but Ken managed to fend them off. They tried to hit him with sticks and bottles, but he grabbed a stick and kept hitting them, and no one could stop him. While Tun was trying to escape, the fight continued in the bar, with no one able to stop Ken until one of them attacked him with a knife. However, Ken managed to take him down and get the knife. Then, Tun came back to the scene with a weapon to kill Ken. As soon as he entered, he fired at Ken, but accidentally shot one of his own guys, with no bullets hitting Ken. Ken charged at them and fought them until he ran out of bullets. At that point, Tun attacked him from behind and hit him on the head, but Ken wasn't affected. He grabbed a bottle and smashed it over Tun, knocking him down. Ken then continued fighting Lincoln's men until none of them were left. Lincoln was just watching what his brother was doing. After Ken finished killing Lincoln's guys, he asked him why he tried to kill him in prison. Lincoln explained that his hatred for Ken stemmed from the fact that everyone loved and respected him, while Lincoln was always seen as the troublemaker. Lincoln decided he had to kill Ken, so he grabbed his gun and aimed it at Ken, trying to shoot him, only to discover that the gun was empty. At that moment, Bees handed him a knife to kill his brother. Then Lincoln attacked Ken and tried to stab him, leading to a fight between them. But Ken managed to take the knife from his brother and kill him. And that's how our movie ends. If you like the film, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.